Talk shows aren't always about laughter and light-hearted stories. Sometimes they're where the pieces of life collide, creating moments of resonance that transcend all boundaries. That night, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a sharp-witted politician with a powerful voice on the political stage, broke down in tears live on air. Those tears weren't a sign of weakness, but the outpouring of a soul awakened, stirred by an unexpected message from Ibrahim Traoré, the young and commanding president of Burkina Faso. Their story, watched by millions, went beyond the confines of an interview. It was a powerful testament to how a single, unintended word can become a beacon, guiding through darkness and shaping a meaningful legacy. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The shimmering stage lights enveloped the studio of the Global Leadership Forum, where the world's most influential voices converged. Today, it wasn't a professional host, but Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett leading the discussion. Known for her incisive political acumen and relentless advocacy for social justice and human rights, she brought a unique blend of intellect and empathy. The organizers chose her not only for her political stature, but for her remarkable ability to spark profound conversations that went beyond dry pronouncements. Dressed in an elegant navy suit, Jasmine lightly touched the silver dove necklace on her chest, a small but deeply meaningful symbol of peace and hope, a constant reminder of her mission. As the welcoming applause faded, a special figure stepped forward, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. His presence at such an international forum, where leaders typically shy away from personal revelations, sparked curiosity and hushed questions in the audience. As a young military leader shouldering the future of a challenging West African nation, Ibrahim Traoré's face often carried a calm, sometimes stern demeanor, concealing the immense burdens only a head of state could truly understand. He walked with composed confidence, his resolute gaze scanning the audience as if searching for something. Jasmine began, her voice warm and professional, opening the interview with questions about his vision for his country. Ibrahim responded calmly, his gaze steady. But in a seemingly ordinary moment, his eyes lingered on Jasmine's dove necklace. A subtle shift passed over his face. He bowed his head slightly, as if weighing something profoundly important, then suddenly spoke, his voice deeper, resonating through the studio, transforming the atmosphere of the forum into a fateful dialogue, an honest confession so raw it took the breath away. "Miss Crockett, there's something I've never shared publicly before, but I feel I need to tell you." President Traoré's unexpected plea to share something never revealed before created a moment of stillness that enveloped the studio. Jasmine Crockett, a seasoned politician, accustomed to quick-witted exchanges and carefully prepared speeches, found herself utterly unprepared. She looked at Ibrahim Traoré, and for the first time he wasn't the resolute president or military leader, but a human being standing before her, his eyes carrying something deeper than the responsibilities of a head of state. Ibrahim began his story, his voice low and steady, each word carrying undeniable weight. He didn't speak of policy or diplomacy, but of the invisible burdens of power, of a role he never sought but was thrust upon him by fate. "Miss Crockett," he started, his gaze briefly flickering to her dove necklace as if seeking an anchor. "People often look at the title of president and see power, privilege, but few see the solitude. Few see the sleepless nights when you face the echoes of millions of lives depending on your decisions." He took a sip of water, his eyes sweeping the audience but seeming to peer into a distant space where painful memories lingered as vividly as if they were yesterday. He spoke of nights spent awake, not working on paperwork but confronting himself, grappling with unanswerable questions. His decisions, whether military to protect borders or civilian to build peace, carried the weight of lives and futures he was tasked to safeguard. "I've seen too much loss," he said, his voice softening, his words compressed from thousands of silent sighs. Not just battles on the battlefield where blood and tears mix, but the quiet wars in every village, every family in Burkina Faso. Famine ravages, disease persists, ethnic conflicts erupt. Each story of suffering, of loss, is a dagger carved deep into my soul. There are times I feel like I'm carrying the entire sky on my shoulders, and that sky is heavy with the tears of innocent people. Jasmine listened, unblinking, her every gesture frozen. As a U.S. Congresswoman, she understood something of the pressures of representing millions, where decisions directly shape lives and futures. She had endured sleepless nights, moments of self-doubt, wondering if her efforts on Capitol Hill, her speeches, and heated debates truly made a meaningful difference in a vast and sometimes unforgiving system. She knew the loneliness of standing at the pinnacle of power, where weakness is not allowed, where you must always be the unyielding pillar. She touched her dove necklace, the small symbol of hope she clung to, not just for herself but for those she represented, for the ideals she pursued. "Suffering isn't just material or physical loss," Ibrahim continued, his voice growing deeper, more earnest, as if voicing a truth etched into his core. "Suffering is the silent gnawing at your soul when you don't know where to turn, what to hold on to. It's seeing the desperate eyes of your people and feeling utterly powerless. In those moments, I've asked myself countless times, am I on the right path or just a pawn in a larger game I can't control? Are these sacrifices worth it?" The studio fell into an almost sacred silence. The audience, from high-ranking officials to ordinary attendees, was drawn into the president's story. They no longer saw a rigid leader or a cold soldier, but a man with deep emotional wounds, wrestling with the meaning of existence and the weight of leadership. It was a rare image, touching something profoundly human and vulnerable in everyone listening. Jasmine felt it, sensing the fragile yet powerful connection between souls bearing unimaginable burdens. The silence in the studio lingered for a few more breaths. Ibrahim Traoré, unhurried, let his words about the weight of power and solitude settle, allowing the audience and Jasmine to absorb them fully. Jasmine's eyes remained fixed on him, her initial surprise giving way to profound empathy, not just as a politician or host, but as a soul who understood pain. "That night I reached my breaking point," Ibrahim continued, his voice lower, as if recounting a haunting dream. "It was a night at the presidential palace. The gunfire had paused, but its echoes still rang in my mind. A new report about famine in the north had just arrived, and I felt helpless. I sat there, in that vast room, staring into the black void outside the window, wondering if all our sacrifices, our struggles, meant anything. I had lost loved ones, loyal comrades on this path. That pain, that loneliness seemed to engulf me. I thought, I can't go on, my strength is gone, my hope extinguished." He took a deep breath, each gesture deliberate, as if piecing together shattered memories. In that moment of deepest despair, I didn't seek news or political documents. I just needed something to soothe my soul, something to escape the harsh reality. I opened my phone, scrolling through social media, an unconscious act to pass the time, and then I saw it. Jasmine's heart raced. "Saw what, Mr. President?" she asked softly, as if afraid to shatter the fragile atmosphere. "An old clip," Ibrahim replied, his eyes locking onto Jasmine's, a faint, almost imperceptible smile crossing his lips. "Of you, Miss Crockett." The studio held its breath. The audience began to murmur, whispers spreading like a wave. Jasmine was stunned. She knew she had many interviews and speeches, but could one of them have reached a president in his darkest hour? She gripped her dove necklace, a shiver running down her spine. Ibrahim continued, each word piercing Jasmine's mind. "It wasn't dramatic, not from a congressional session or a grand speech. You were sitting somewhere simple, maybe a small community meeting. You weren't in a power suit, just something modest. You were talking about hope. You spoke about how, even in the darkest moments, when every door seems slammed shut, a ray of light can appear from the least expected places. You talked about the power of faith, not just in yourself, but in something greater, a purpose beyond personal pain. He paused, as if reliving every detail of that moment. You didn't know anyone was filming or who would see that clip. You just spoke from your heart, with absolute honesty. You said, sometimes your pain is your position. We're not always chosen for noble roles to fulfill our purpose. Sometimes it's our scars, our wounds, that open the door to understanding, to connecting with others' pain. And sometimes your politics, your work, your life, they're just the disguise God uses to send hope to others. Jasmine felt the world spin. Those words, she remembered saying them. She recalled that late-night community meeting, exhausted, speaking her rawest thoughts, almost a confession to herself and the few dozen listeners. She never imagined it was recorded, let alone that it would spread and touch a president on the brink of despair. When you said those words, Ibrahim continued, his voice softer, your eyes held conviction, but also a deep sadness, and then I saw your necklace. That dove, a symbol of peace. In that moment, it became a beacon for me. I watched it, listened to you, and a thought sparked in my mind. If a woman so far away, facing her own pressures and pain in her work, can still hold on to faith and say those words, then maybe, just maybe, I can find my strength again. Maybe there's still hope for my country, and for me. Jasmine's eyes welled up. A powerful wave of emotion surged from her core shock, awe, and overwhelming realization of the invisible power of honest words. She, a politician focused on data, strategy, and results, now faced living proof of how intangible things from the heart, could wield such immense influence. You didn't know I existed, Miss Crockett, Ibrahim said, his voice so sincere it brought the first tears to Jasmine's eyes. You weren't trying to inspire me. You were just being you, sharing what you believed. And that saved me from the abyss of despair. It gave me a reason to keep fighting, not just for my country but for my own soul. Jasmine pressed her hand to her mouth, stifling small sobs. Her shoulders trembled. She had helped countless people, fought countless battles in Congress. But never had she realized that a fleeting, heartfelt moment could so profoundly impact the life of a president carrying the fate of a nation. It was a revelation, a powerful affirmation of the true meaning of her work, far beyond conventional politics. President Ibrahim Traoré's words echoed through the auditorium, cutting through the stunned murmurs of the audience and piercing Jasmine Crockett's heart. She still covered her mouth, tears streaming hot down her cheeks. These weren't just tears of surprise. They were the outpouring of a soul, a moment of profound awakening that stripped away every political facade, every trace of her usual composure. Ibrahim watched Jasmine, his eyes filled with understanding and a strange peace. He gave her time to process what had been revealed. No one spoke. Only Jasmine's soft, choked sobs and the audience's heavy breathing filled the air. In that moment, Jasmine was no longer the powerful U.S. congresswoman or the poised host. She was just a human, facing a truth too vast, too sacred, about the meaning of her life. You didn't know I existed, Miss Crockett, Ibrahim repeated, his voice warm and gentle, like a comforting whisper. You weren't trying to inspire me. You were just being you, a champion of justice and hope, speaking what you believed from the depths of your heart, and that saved me from the abyss of despair. He paused, letting the words linger. It gave me a reason to keep fighting, not just for my country, but for my own soul, when I had nearly lost all faith. Jasmine's mind reeled. She had always believed in the power of words, in changing the world through politics and legislation. But now she witnessed a different power, an invisible one that needed no podium or Congress, no budget or laws. It was the power of absolute honesty, of compassion, expressed without calculation. She realized that her most vulnerable moments, when she shared her deepest truths without script or agenda, were when she had the greatest impact. It reaffirmed her purpose in life and work, more powerfully and authentically than ever, transcending any conventional political definition. As Jasmine regained some composure, she lifted her head, her tear-streaked eyes shining with a new light. She looked at Ibrahim Traoré, a man who, moments ago, was a distant president, now a messenger bearing a sacred truth. "You think you're just a politician with conviction, Miss Crockett," Ibrahim continued, his voice deep and meaningful, offering an insight beyond titles and roles. "You think your job is to govern, to change laws, to represent voters. But I, who witnessed the power of your words in my darkest night, see something else." He paused, locking eyes with Jasmine, as if etching his words into her soul. "I think you're something more. I think you're a pastor in disguise." That declaration, pastor in disguise, echoed through the studio, sparking a ripple of surprise among the audience. Jasmine was stunned. Pastor? She had never seen herself that way. She was a politician, an activist. She fought for rights, for justice, but not from a pulpit. "Yes," Ibrahim continued, as if reading her thoughts. "You don't wear a pastor's robe, you wear a business suit. You don't stand at a church pulpit, you stand in Congress or at community forums. But your spirit, your words, your heart carry a message with the power to heal, to uplift souls, no different from what a true pastor does." He elaborated, each word deliberate and weighty, emphasizing its deeper meaning. "Your mission isn't just to pass laws or debate policies. Your mission is to deliver hope, to help people find meaning in pain, to affirm that even when everything falls apart, there's still a faith, a greater strength guiding the way." Jasmine listened, each of Ibrahim's words peeling away an invisible armor she had unconsciously worn for years. She had always strived to be strong, rational, focused on practical issues. But deep down, she was always a person of compassion, with unwavering faith in goodness. Now, that faith was publicly recognized by a stranger, a powerful president, and called her calling. The atmosphere in the studio seemed to thicken, holding its breath with every nuance of Jasmine Crockett's emotions. She was still sobbing, but her tears now carried a sense of peace and newfound awareness. President Ibrahim Traoré's call of pastor in disguise had deeply stirred something within her, an aspect she had perhaps unwittingly overlooked in the whirlwind of politics. Slowly she lifted her head, her eyes meeting Ibrahim's, a genuine connection transcending all barriers of status and culture. "Mr. President," Jasmine said softly, her voice still trembling but filled with a deep desire to understand more. "You spoke of those long, lonely nights, of the cries of your people echoing in the silence. Have you ever heard the voice of God or some higher power in that silence? When the weight of a nation presses on your shoulders, when everything feels like it's collapsing?" Ibrahim Traoré listened to Jasmine's question with care. His face, usually stern, softened, reflecting deep contemplation. He took a deep breath, as if gathering thoughts from the depths of his soul. "Yes, Miss Crockett," he replied, his gaze distant, as if returning to his loneliest moments. "Silence has been my companion for a long time, especially when facing the toughest decisions, moments when the fate of millions rests in my hands. In that silence, the voices of those who have fallen, those who suffer, those fragile hopes seem clearer than ever. He continued, his voice growing deeper and so sincere that everyone in the room felt it. I've doubted. I've given up. I've felt loneliness to my very core, like a small boat lost in a stormy sea, without a compass, without a glimmer of hope. But even in the deepest darkness, when everything seemed to dissolve, I felt something, a presence, an inexplicable peace. It wasn't always loud like thunder, nor always comforting like a lullaby, but it was always there, like an invisible thread tethering me to life, to my mission. Jasmine nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on Ibrahim. She understood that feeling. Though she didn't face war or famine like him as a politician, she too had moments of doubt, long nights of self-questioning. She too had sought an anchor, an invisible strength when she felt stuck. She touched her dove necklace, that small symbol now more alive than ever. That's faith, Mr. President, Jasmine said, her voice a whisper of affirmation. Even when it doesn't have a specific name, even when it's not defined by doctrine or a church, it's what you feel deep in your soul, a connection to something greater than ourselves, a silent promise that you're never truly alone. Ibrahim nodded, his eyes now calmer, as if a weight had been lifted. Exactly. And that necklace of yours, Miss Crockett, it's not just jewelry. When I saw you in that clip, that little dove became a signal for me, a beacon in my darkest night, reminding me of a world where hope still exists, rising above all chaos and hardship. It showed me that even those facing different pressures, different battles, can still find and carry hope. He looked directly at Jasmine, a strange spark flashing in his eyes. My pain, the scars I bear, they're not the end. They're part of the journey, and you help me see that. Pain is part of the mission. It's not something to escape, but something to understand and turn into motivation. Jasmine felt a powerful surge of emotion. Ibrahim's words were not just confirmation of what she had said, but a lesson for her. Pain, whether personal or communal, wasn't always a sign of failure. Sometimes it was the door to deeper understanding, to the ability to connect and heal. But now she realized there was another path, one of the heart and soul, where empathy and faith could create even more powerful change. She saw that her mission, whether in politics or on a disguised pulpit, was one and the same, and it began with understanding pain. The dialogue about faith and mission between President Ibrahim Traoré and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett turned the studio atmosphere sacred, far beyond the original intent of a television program. Jasmine, her eyes still wet but shining with profound understanding, felt an unprecedented connection with the president from a distant continent. She realized that her own scars, her moments of doubt and struggle, were not burdens but keys to opening her heart to others' pain. Suddenly, Ibrahim Traoré leaned forward, his gaze more resolute and focused than ever. An absolute silence enveloped the room, so profound that one could hear their own heartbeat. This silence wasn't anticipation for an answer, but for something even greater, a new moment of revelation. Miss Jasmine, Ibrahim said, his voice warm but clear, each word resonating. There's one more thing I need to tell you. Something that could change your life, just as you changed mine. The studio held its breath. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, fully focused on the two figures on stage. In Jasmine's heart, a mix of fear and anticipation surged. She didn't know what awaited her, but her intuition told her this would be a turning point, an answer to the questions that had long haunted her. She gave a slight nod, speechless, her eyes full of questions and readiness to receive. Ibrahim looked directly into Jasmine's eyes, his gaze filled with respect and deep gratitude. I've held these words for years, he said, kept them like a treasure, a small flame lighting my path in my darkest nights. They came from you, Miss Jasmine. And tonight I need to say them back to you, because I think you, in the relentless grind of politics, with the pressures and expectations you carry, may have forgotten the power they hold. the power they gave me." Then he began to repeat. Word for word, he recited the very words Jasmine had spoken in that old clip. His voice, though calm, was filled with emotion and the weight of personal experience, now spoken by a president who had been saved by those words. "You said, Miss Jasmine, sometimes your pain is your position." Ibrahim paused, letting the words sink into the air. Jasmine felt a jolt run down her spine. It was a simple phrase, but when echoed by a leader who had endured profound pain, it became chillingly powerful. "You also said, we're not always chosen for noble roles to fulfill our purpose." He continued, each of Jasmine's words now painted with his own life story. "You said, sometimes it's our scars, our wounds that open the door to understanding, to connecting with others' pain." Ibrahim looked straight at Jasmine, and she felt as if he were seeing through her soul. "And you said, Miss Jasmine, a line that haunted me in my darkest days, a line that lit my path. And sometimes your politics, your work, your life, they're just the disguise God uses to send hope to others." As those words were repeated, Jasmine was utterly overwhelmed. She bowed her head, hands covering her face, tears falling like rain. These were no longer tears of surprise or confusion, but tears of profound awakening, of liberation and recognition of the immense meaning in her life. Her own words had moved her in the most powerful way, like a reminder from the universe itself, delivered through a president's voice. It felt like absolution for her doubts and struggles. She realized that what she had said, once spoken in a moment of unguarded honesty, was now returned to her with a new power, an eternal significance. Jasmine realized she had underestimated her own impact, the power of her words and actions. She had always focused on achieving results, winning debates, pushing legislation, but it was in the moments she was most herself, revealing her deepest vulnerabilities and faith, that she truly touched others' lives, even saving a lost soul halfway across the world. Ibrahim's words were more than gratitude. They were a mirror, showing Jasmine herself in a completely new light, a light of mission and meaning. President Ibrahim Traoré's reiteration of Jasmine's own message created a magical, almost surreal moment in the studio. Jasmine Crockett remained bowed, her choked sobs trembling in her chest. It was the release of years of doubt, of burdens she had unconsciously carried as a politician. Ibrahim, with a calm but understanding gaze, waited patiently. He gave her the space and time to fully absorb the weight of those words, now returned to her as a priceless gift. The audience, from seasoned politicians to ordinary citizens, sat in absolute silence. They were no longer just viewers, but witnesses to a sacred moment, a destined meeting of souls. Soft sobs echoed in the room, tears of empathy rolling down many faces. The air thickened, filled with 1,000 surging emotions. Slowly, Jasmine lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but they shone with a newfound peace and resolve. It was as if a veil had been lifted. She looked at Ibrahim Traoré with gratitude and profound understanding. It wasn't just gratitude for being helped, but for being seen in her truest self, in a way she had never dared confront. "Mr. President," Jasmine whispered, her voice still trembling, I don't know what to say. I never imagined that those words could—" She choked, unable to finish. Ibrahim gave a faint, warm smile. "You don't need to say anything more, Miss Jasmine," he said, his voice resonating through the studio. "You already said it, years ago, and I believe tonight you've said it again, for yourself. You reminded me of hope, and tonight I've been allowed to remind you of your strength." The program's closing music played softly, signaling the end of the live broadcast. It wasn't a harsh interruption, but a perfect low note for an emotional symphony. Jasmine took a deep breath, struggling to regain her composure. She looked directly into the camera, a new light in her tear-filled eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice still slightly choked, but brimming with sincerity, this is an evening we will never forget. An evening where we witnessed the power of truth, of hope, and of faith in something greater than ourselves. Thank you, President Traore, for your invaluable sharing, words that have changed my life and I believe the lives of many others. She turned to Ibrahim, and thank you all for watching. Good night. As the stage lights dimmed and the cameras shut off, the studio atmosphere shifted from sacred to a controlled chaos. The production crew, used to high-pressure work, now showed visible awe and gratitude. They stood quietly, applauding. The applause didn't stop, not for a performance, but for a moment of truth and healing. Jasmine and Ibrahim stood. They approached each other. There were no formal pleasantries. They simply looked into each other's eyes. "Mr. President," Jasmine said softly, her voice still trembling, "I owe you my deepest thanks. You've shown me something I had forgotten for so long." Ibrahim nodded, placing a hand gently but firmly on Jasmine's shoulder. "You've fulfilled your mission, Miss Jasmine. Now it's time you recognize it. I'm just a messenger." His eyes were serious yet comforting. "The world needs to hear those words. You need to speak them." "I will," Jasmine replied firmly, her eyes flashing with a new fire of resolve. "I need to let the world know that hope can be found anywhere, even in the most desperate moments." Jasmine felt a new energy coursing through her. Her political career, the ideals she pursued, were now infused with a deeper meaning, a greater purpose. It wasn't just about fighting for rights. It was about delivering hope, touching wounded souls, proving that even in life's and politics' fiercest battles, an invisible force guides the way. As the crew packed up equipment, Jasmine and Ibrahim lingered for a few minutes, exchanging a few more words. It wasn't about politics or diplomacy, but a dialogue between two people who had found a profound connection through pain and hope. That simple, honest moment etched itself into the minds of those who witnessed it, soon spreading worldwide, sparking an unprecedented wave of response. As soon as the program ended and the live broadcast cut off, a global storm of reaction erupted. Social media became the epicenter of the event. Hashtags like #Jasmine Crockett, #Ibrahim Traoré, #Hope in the Darkness, #Politician as Minister, and #Light in the Night quickly trended across platforms. Millions shared clips of Ibrahim revealing Jasmine's message and her emotional breakdown. Videos were edited, commented on, and spread at lightning speed, touching the hearts of billions worldwide. The public response was a powerful, positive wave of emotion. Thousands of comments, messages, and emails flooded in. People from all walks of life, from every nation, expressed profound emotion. They praised President Traoré's courage in unveiling his personal pain and Jasmine Crockett's absolute sincerity. Many shared how Jasmine's words had given them hope in their own difficult moments. "I felt lost like that too," one Nine user wrote, and Miss Crockett's words, echoed by a president, showed me I'm not alone. In political and diplomatic circles, the interview sparked an unexpected new dialogue. Analysts, typically focused on numbers and strategies, now discussed emotion and humanity. Some praised it as a bold, effective diplomatic move by President Traoré, crafting an image of a humane leader beyond the stereotype of a military figure. Others questioned the appropriateness of a head of state sharing so much personal emotion on international television, but even the skeptics admitted its profound impact. The interview proved that politics is not just reason but also heart. For Jasmine Crockett, the impact was immense and profound. Overnight, she became a global symbol of truth, compassion, and hope. Her political career turned a new page, not just as a congresswoman fighting for rights, but as an inspiring voice, a true pastor in disguise. She received millions of supportive messages, not only from her constituents but from people worldwide whose souls she had touched. Jasmine no longer doubted the value of her work. She realized her mission extended beyond Washington's halls of power. It was to bring light to the darkest places, to connect wounded hearts. Ibrahim Traoré's words showed her that her work wasn't just governance, but touching souls. For Ibrahim Traoré, the interview also left a significant legacy. His international image was reshaped. No longer just a young military president, he was a deeply human figure capable of connecting and inspiring. The dialogue opened new diplomatic doors for Burkina Faso, drawing international attention and empathy. Many countries and organizations expressed greater interest in Burkina Faso's situation, not just for political reasons, but out of empathy for the president's personal story. It proved that even the strongest leaders can find strength in sharing. The dialogue between Jasmine Crockett and Ibrahim Traoré became a historic television moment. It wasn't just a widely watched program, but a lesson in the power of truth, how pain can become a bridge, and how an unintended word can create an eternal legacy. From two different worlds, these two individuals proved together that hope always exists, even in the deepest darkness, and sometimes the savior is the one unaware of their own mission. The story of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and President Ibrahim Traoré deeply reflects the challenges and aspirations in modern American life. Today, American society is undergoing a period of profound polarization, from politics and society to culture. The voices of discord often drown out understanding, and many feel isolated, exhausted by life's pressures, and anxious about the nation's future. First, the story underscores the importance of authenticity and compassion. Ibrahim Traoré, an exhausted president, found hope in an old clip of Jasmine, not through grand speeches or rigid policies. He was moved by her heartfelt words about pain being a position and politics being a disguise to send hope. This shows that in an era of skepticism, openness, sharing vulnerability, and speaking truthfully can create the deepest impact far beyond any media strategy. Second, the story encourages us to recognize our true value and life's purpose. Jasmine, a successful politician who once doubted the meaning of her work, was awakened when Ibrahim called her a pastor in disguise. This serves as a reminder not to let ambition or life's pressures obscure a greater purpose. Our value lies not only in what we achieve, but in how we touch and positively impact others' lives with kindness and sincerity. Sometimes, the smallest, most uncalculated actions become a beacon of salvation for lost souls, not just for others, but for ourselves as well. Thank you for joining us through this emotional story, where hope is ignited from unexpected places. Please subscribe to our channel to not miss the next heartfelt and meaningful stories, and we'll see you in the upcoming video.